it is recommended that you watch my previous 2 Spyro reviews before watching this one. With that out of the way, let's take a look at The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning, which was developed by Chrome Studios and was published by Sierra Entertainment. For those of you who don't know, this is the first game in the Legend of Spyro series, which is a reboot to the original Spyro series. To be honest, I don't remember seeing any advertisements for this game. I only know of it because my stepbrother had a copy and let me try it out. So after having played the game myself, is The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning worth playing? The story begins at a temple housing dragon eggs being protected by a large red dragon named Ignitus. While guarding these eggs, the temple is attacked by an evil army. In a moment of panic, Ignitus takes the rarest egg and sends it down the river to keep it safe from the enemies. The egg is eventually found by a dragonfly family who raises a young baby dragon from the egg as their own. The dragon from the egg is Spyro, who when playing with his brother Sparx discovers that he can breathe fire and that he is in fact a dragon. Curious about who he really is, Spyro and Sparx leave the forest, where they then run into Ignitus, who explains to Spyro his past as well as the history of the dragons and their battle against the Dark One. From there, Spyro trains under Ignitus and agrees to help rescue the other dragon guardians. Okay, so the story is more complex and even darker than previous games, which I find to be pretty alright. It's a reboot after all, and the game does a very good job at setting up a fantasy epic. There are some elements here that I really like, such as the Dragon Guardians and their role in the temple. I also like the main villain of the game, Cinder, and her backstory. And lastly, I like Spyro himself. Not just as his character, which we'll get to later, but also his role in the story. You see, in this series, Spyro being a purple dragon actually holds significance. Purple dragons are of a very rare breed that are capable of learning all 4 of the elemental breaths. So Spyro is basically the Avatar, which is actually a really cool idea. Now, this game does keep things simple, but open enough for it to be more complex, which I like as it's a good setup for the series. The characters are also really good. Ignitus is great as a mentor figure for Spyro, while being an interesting character himself. Sparx is now more of the comic relief character, and he's not that bad as there were some lines that made me chuckle. Plus, he does have some nice brotherly moments with Spyro. And then there is Spyro himself, who is very different from previous games. Spyro is now a more innocent and kind-hearted person who wants to save the world and fulfill his role as the Purple Dragon. And I kinda like this interpretation of Spyro. The side characters aren't too interesting or complex, but at the same time, they aren't that bad. The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning is an action-adventure game. You will be playing as Spyro, who has a very different playstyle compared to previous games. Sure, he can still glide, charge, and head smash, but they aren't always used the same as they were before. For example, the charge attack is practically useless as it's not very fast or very strong. And maybe it's just me, but when gliding he seems to drop faster than what I'm used to. However, Spyro does get some new moves, like for the first time ever he can use his claws for attacking. In fact, the combat has become more complex for Spyro. Not only can he do a 3-hit combo, he can also send enemies into the air and attack them there, or mix things up with his charge attack or breath attacks when fighting. It's not too complex, but it's something new for a Spyro game, and it works rather well. For the first time ever, Spyro has a health bar and energy bar. His energy bar will drain when using his breath attacks, which puts a bit of a limit on when using your breath attacks. Spyro's breath attacks have been expanded a bit as well. Now there is a regular attack and a ranged attack. The 4 elements are fire, ice, lightning, and the new element, earth. Of the 4 breaths, lightning is by far the worst, as its regular attack is kind of awkward to use, and its range attack is only useful when you're near the enemy. While the earth breath is the best, as its regular attack can do some great damage and send enemies flying, and its range attack is great for taking out multiple enemies at once. You will get these breath attacks as you progress through the game, which for the most part is very linear with little to no exploration. Gems have a different use as well. Now different colored gems help Spyro in different ways. Red gems will restore health, green gems will restore energy, blue gems are experience points, and purple gems will fill up Spyro's super attack bar. Once this bar is full, Spyro can unleash a powerful attack that will almost take out everything on screen. However, it takes so long to fill up this bar, I almost never use it. Experience points can be spent at the menu screen to increase Spyro's breath attacks, which is kind of nice. Very few times in the game you will play a flight-like section where you have to fly around dodging enemies and objects. There are also boss fights in the game that are usually broken up into 3 sections, and these fights are just okay at best, but nothing special. If you die in the game, you will be respawned at a nearby point, and you can die endlessly since there are no live systems in this game. Visually, the game looks really good and has a very unique cartoon art style. Areas in the game have some nice detail to them and are quite colorful. In the first level of the game, there are some nice lighting and glowing effects that are quite pleasant to the eyes. Character models look good as well, as they have some really great detail to them and some nice smooth animations. Spyro's new design looks pretty good. Sure, it's not my favorite design, but it's different enough without being too weird. The voice acting in the game is really good as well. Gary Oldman does a good job as the wise Ignitus, David Spade isn't too bad as Sparks, and Elijah Wood does a really good job voicing Spyro, as he's a good choice when it comes to the innocent but determined typed characters. The music is also very good. Many of the tracks have a fitting fantasy feel to them, with some of the tracks being very memorable and worth listening to on their own. So, would I recommend playing The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning? It certainly is not a bad game, and I don't think it's a bad reboot. Combat is fine, and the game looks good, and it has a decent story with likable characters, and the new breath attacks is a cool concept. The problem is more with the level design and the enemies. First, the levels are rather flat and boring, with very little platforming. Sure, the environments are cool, but the levels themselves aren't too memorable. As for the enemies, well, usually you're fighting the same enemy type throughout the whole game, and it gets pretty boring and tedious quite fast, especially when levels have you fighting off lots of enemies before you can even progress. This wouldn't be such a problem if enemies had smaller health bars. In the end, it's not a bad game, and it isn't very long. It's just very mediocre, but it has some potential. If you do plan on giving this game a try, it won't be a huge waste of your time, but it won't be really that great of one either. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review and found it to be rather informative. If you'd like to see more reviews, please check out my channel. And please don't forget to subscribe. And if there are any other PS2 games you'd like to see me review in the future, please leave a suggestion down below. Well, I'm MCB the PS2 Gamer, and I'll see you guys next time.